Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and I'm doing something a little new today. I'm going to be reviewing my first ever movie, and I chose The Thing, and as you can see right here, The Thing is a 1982 movie, and it says, it got 5 stars by the way on Amazon Prime. That's where I watched it. I actually purchased it because I couldn't find it on Netflix or anywhere else, so I bought it on Amazon Prime just to watch it. But as you can see, the description says, scientists at an Arctic research station discover an alien spacecraft under thick ice and thaw out the alien body it found aboard. Alright guys, so that's reading that description right there. Now, the reason I chose The Thing, okay, if you guys watch my other videos, or maybe you haven't, or you're new to the channel, I recently done an unboxing video with horror action figures from NECA, and I got a couple The Thing figures, which were MacReady and an alien dog or something like that. And I just mentioned casually in the video that I'm not really a fan of The Thing. I never really watched the movie, don't know much about it, so I'll probably end up getting rid of those figures, right? Well, I got a bunch of comments from different people about this, saying that I'm a fake horror fan, that I should have watched The Thing, and like basically I'm a piece of crap for not watching. And I had some nicer people just saying, yeah, I recommend you should watch it, it's a really good movie, blah, blah, blah. So I had some nice people, but I had a lot of shit talkers, which is fine. I love people having their own opinions. Everything's about having your own opinion, but you should also respect other people's, right? But anyways, so they're telling me I'm a fake horror fan, so I was like, all right, I'm going to check it out, watch it, and why not review it to let you guys know how I feel about it. And I never said, some people were calling me out because I said Alien and Predator movies I consider more science fiction than horror. I got called out on that too. A lot of people hating on me because I said that that's my own opinion, right? That I think they're more science fiction than horror. And, you know, of course, everybody blasted me for that. But I didn't say that, and if I did, I was mistaken. I wasn't trying to say The Thing was necessarily a science fiction movie only and not horror. And I wasn't really saying that about aliens or predators either. I was just saying they're more science fiction to me. This movie, I don't remember. If I ever watched The Thing, I must have been a little kid, and I forgot. I don't really remember. All I was thinking about when somebody says The Thing, I think of an alien parasite. I don't know anything more. That's what pops in my head. So I'm going to check it out, and we're going to watch it. Well, I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to review it, and I'll put that information in here. I'm not going to make you guys watch me watch it the whole time. I don't know if you'd enjoy that, but I'm sure I'd get copyrighted out the ass. It's probably already getting copyrighted for this little preview on the screen. But that's what I'm planning on doing, and I'm trying to do right by the movie. I got my horror movie blanket here. You know, I got blood on there. There's some vampire stuff going on. So I got my horror movie blanket here. I got my dogs nearby. Looks like they're all passed out, but if I get scared, they're going to comfort me. And like I said, I have it on the 75-inch TV. This is the biggest TV I have in the house, and it's like I said, it's ultra high definition version of The Thing. So I hope that's good enough for you guys. But I did want to point something out, mentioning, you know, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to find my remote here. But just mentioning the aliens and predators. So I went ahead on here and I said, oh, let me look up Alien and see if they have the movies on here. Okay, so they have Alien. And I went over just to read the description. I'm going to have to buy them if I want to watch them on here too. But I was like, well, just out of curiosity, what are they considering? Oops, I clicked over on the wrong ones. Well, no, I think that's right. We're not Search of Aliens. That's not what we're looking for. We got Alien right here, right? On Amazon Prime, you guys better go get them, man. They're considering it suspense science fiction. All right, and is this the correct? Let me make sure it's the correct. Let's click into it. 1979, suspense science fiction, the original classic, the frightening, intense story of the discovery of a vicious alien species by blue-collar space crew has become a sci-fi landmark. Oscar winner, the best visual effects. Okay, so that's the description on Amazon Prime, guys, for you guys hating on me saying, no, it's all horror, it's not science fiction, or it's, you know, this or that. So just, that's that right there, right? So let me see, let me go back. Okay, we got the second Aliens movie down here. Aliens, not the first one was Alien, right? This one's called Aliens. Action Adventure is what they're considering on Amazon Prime. You guys better file some complaints. Let me click into that. Amazon Prime got this shit all wrong. But they said this is Space Marines mount a mission to rescue a colony invaded by deadly creatures. Okay, so 1986. Man, that's a pretty big gap between, it's 7 years or something between the two. All right, guys. So that's you guys need to get on. You guys need to get on them for not classifying them all as horror movies. Even though, like I said, I'm not saying they're not horror movies. I'm just saying. And let me see. Let me look up Predator. See if they have Predator on here. Let's see. Pred. It should pop up. There we go. We got Predator down here. Predator. Predator, Amazon Prime, action fantasy. Let's click to make sure it's the correct movie. It's muscles versus monsters when Arnold Schwarzenegger takes on a murderous space alien in the jungles of Central America. Okay, so they're considering this a action fantasy. I was saying science fiction action is what I would classify. Then we got The Predator. Let's see what that is. The Predator action adventure. So whatever The Predator is. And then there's one called Predators, action adventure. Now we got Aliens versus Predator, action adventure. So this is Amazon Prime, guys. This isn't me. So do not blame me for what they're saying. But I wanted to point that out. Everybody has their own opinion what they classify these movies as. So to call somebody stupid or say you're not a horror movie fan because you think that Predator and Alien are more science fiction than they are horror. But we're going to get back to the movie here. Let me start it up. Okay. But again, guys, I think I'm good and I'm set up here. I have my dogs around for comfort if I get scared. I got my TV. I got my my horror movie blanket here. Oh, I'm all set up for this, guys. All set up for this. So anyways, I'm going to stop the video here. I'm going to watch it. Then I'm going to review it and let you guys know. Well, after I finish the movie, I'll review it. You know what I'm saying. And after I'm done, I'll let you know what I thought. And if I consider this more horror or sci-fi. And whatever. We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the rest. The opening scene is a spaceship in outer space. As it's flying by the Earth, it appears to crash into the Earth. And then from that, we get the title of the movie, The Thing. We're then told that this is taking place in Antarctica in 1982. We see a dog running as a helicopter is chasing it in the distance, and we see the helicopter is actually shooting at this dog, and I felt really bad for the dog. I was hoping the dog would get away. So anyways, we go and we see United States National Science Institute Station 4. We go inside the station and we see there's not a whole lot going on here. It seems like everybody's kind of bored, trying to keep themselves entertained. We have the two doctors playing ping pong. We have two people reading and one playing on the arcade. We are then introduced to our main protagonist, R.J. McCready, played by Kurt Russell, as he's losing to the chess wizard. I just love his reaction. Makes you love the character.
Checkmate. Checkmate. Cheating bitch.
Our crew go outside as they hear and see a Norwegian helicopter circling their base. The Norwegians land their helicopter right outside the base. One of the Norwegians is in pursuit of the dog, still shooting at him, as the other one pulls out a hand grenade to kill the dog. However, it slips his hand and falls in the snow next to him, killing him and blowing up their helicopter. It also throws the other Norwegian to the ground from the explosion. The dog then runs up to our crew and jumps up on George Bennings. We then hear the Norwegian saying all kinds of things in Norwegian that we don't understand and nobody else does either. And he begins shooting at the dog. He grazes poor old George Bennings as the rest of the crew tries to move out of the way of the barrage of bullets. The Norwegian then just kind of walks past everybody he just pretty much shot at, trying to hit the dog. We then see the man in charge, old Gary here. I think he's a military officer or something, or some kind of officer. He shoots the Norwegian in the head, killing him. We then see the dog is safe and sound with Clark. Now, we don't really know much about this dog. It doesn't really go into backstory if the dog's actually one of their dogs or it was just a stray dog that they kind of picked up. But we do know that Clark is in charge of the dogs. I don't know if he's like in charge of like pulling the sleighs or what exactly the point is, but I'm assuming they use the dogs to help them, you know, move around in the snow. We then see Windows on the radio trying to get a hold of somebody. I believe he's their communications guy. And he's talking to Blair, who's one of the doctors on the base. And Blair's telling him they need to get a hold of somebody because of the Norwegian issue that just happened. And he says he hasn't been able to reach anybody in over 2 weeks. Since they're unable to contact anybody, McCready and Dr. Copper fly to the Norwegian base. Upon arriving there, they see it smoking. It has been set on fire. They go inside the base, and everything's pretty much burnt and destroyed, but they do see a blood trail that leads them to a body that seems to be tied to a chair and has its head nearly cut off. They do find some old recordings of the Norwegians that they take. They discover a large block of ice that they believe may have held a fossil at some point. They then go outside and discover a mutilated looking corpse that has been burned. They're not sure if it's human or not, but they decide to take the body and the Norwegian tapes back to their base for further investigation. Arrive back at their base and everyone helps them bring in the corpse for examination. We then see the corpse up close and personal. Not sure how to describe it. It looks like two people melted in one with some animals mixed in. It's pretty crazy looking, pretty disgusting. Dr. Copper and Dr. Blair do an autopsy on the Norwegian that was killed, as well as the odd corpse that they found. And they said all the organs and everything appear to be normal, which is crazy considering what that thing looked like. I'll be honest, the next scene was a little hard for me because I'm a huge animal lover, specifically dogs as well. Anyways, we have Clark bring in the stray dog that they found, the one that was being shot at the beginning, that's just kind of been running around the base at this point. He puts the dog in with the other huskies that they have, and then he goes and turns out the light. And then we see a weird thing here where the dog's kind of sitting there and he starts making these odd noises. The other dogs are like, what's going on? They start freaking out. They're like barking and growling at him. And then we see a gruesome sight. The thing that bothered me the most about this whole dog transformation was not the spider-looking legs that popped out, but the little antennas that are like moving around, and you hear them moving and popping out of the body. Oh my God, that made my skin crawl. This was the first time in this movie so far that just made me, It was, Didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. We hear the dogs crying out. One of them's trying to literally eat through the fence, trying to escape. We see this transformation continuing. It's just looking more and more disgusting. And then it starts attacking the dogs. It's like shooting a liquid out. I think it's like acid, as we see the dog is melting later. It's a very, very sad scene indeed. We have Clark finally decide to come back and check out what's happening. He can't turn the light on, so he's like, he can't see inside, so he decides to just unlock it and walk into the kennel. As he opens the door, two of the dogs jump on him, knocking him over as they try to escape. Thankfully, they get away. He then sees the creature as he's laying on the ground and decides to hurry up and get up and lock that sumbitch. We then go to McCready, who pulls the fire alarm because he hears the dogs going off, which is kind of weird that he went to pull the fire alarm just assuming that it was an emergency without any information. But he pulls it. We see him arrive into where the kennels are to check on the dogs. He sees Clark. Clark tells him there's a beast in there. He goes and looks and sees this monstrosity, and then I'm heartbroken as we see the other dogs being killed. One of them has like melted away from acid. The other one has a bunch of the weird tentacles going through it. And thankfully, they're put out of their misery by none other than Childs, who brought the flamethrower finally and just sets them ablaze. We then see Dr. Blair doing an autopsy on the dead corpse of the beast dog thing. As he's opening it up and looking at it, he discovers there's many different parts in development of the actual dogs. He said that it was actually absorbing the other dogs and trying to replicate them to become them. It's all imitation dog, he says. Very scary. Dr. Blair talks to Clark in private and asks him just how long he was around the infected dog. He says for about an hour, and then we can see the concerned look on the doctor's face, thinking that Clark may be infected. The crew is watching the videotapes of the Norwegians, and they see that the Norwegians are using explosives on the ice, and they decide they want to go check out and see what exactly they were doing out there. They then pinpoint on the map exactly where the spot is. McCready, Norris, and Gary decide to fly out there and see what exactly was going on. Upon arriving, they climb down the hillside of a large crater to reveal a huge spaceship that apparently the Norwegians blew up. McCready asks Norris how long he thinks the ship has been down there. He says, judging by the ice formations around the ship, they got to be over 100,000 years ago. So I think Norris is a geologist. I'm not positive on that, but I'm pretty sure. Nearby the crash site, they find a block-sized hole in the ice, which they're assuming is the same ice block they found at the Norwegians' base. Back at the base, McCready is bombarded with questions, them asking what exactly is out there, what they found. He explains that they found an alien spaceship, that they believe the Norwegians blew up, and also that he believes the Norwegians found an alien body that they thawed out of the ice. Childs calls bullshit on McCready's story, so there's no way there's aliens out there. And McCready says, don't ask me, ask Dr. Blair, he's the one that would know. We see Dr. Blair sitting there looking down with a concerned look on his face. Dr. Blair's in the lab, and we see on the computer screen an intruder alien cell taking over a dog cell, assimilating it and becoming it as an imitation. The computer then states that if the organism was able to reach civilization, it would be able to infect the entire world's population within 27,000 hours. Blair then opens his drawer and pulls out a gun. Fuchs approaches McCready and tells him that it's very important they need to talk in private. Windows and Bennings are in the storage room where they have just now stored the corpse of the creature they found on the Norwegian base, still looking mutilated and disgusting as ever. Windows says he's going to go get the key so they can lock up the storage room. Bennings tells him to go on without him because he has to get a few things. We then see a nasty red slime dripping off the table. Fuchs tells McCready that he's concerned about Dr. Blair because he's locked himself in his room and will not respond. He said he found a note of his in the lab that's terrifying. It states that the organisms that are supposedly dead are not actually dead. Their cells are very much alive. And then also that there's a high chance that one of them are infected. And it only takes a particle of one of these cells to infect them. Windows then goes and gets McCready and Fuchs and tells them about what he saw. They run back to the storage room and they see that Bennings' body is gone. McCready looks out the window and sees Bennings running in the distance. They then run out the door after him. They eventually catch up to him. Everyone gathers around Bennings and realizes it's not actually him, that the thing has indeed taken him over. We then see McCready knock over a nearby fuel drum and then sets him on fire with the flare. McCready then tells everybody they need to burn all the bodies because the cells are still alive. They then gather all the bodies and set them ablaze. McCready says they should also bury the bodies underneath the snow with the tractor just to be safe. We then see him doing this when he notices in the distance Blair running away from the helicopter. McCready yells at Blair, but he's ignored. He runs over to the helicopter to see what he did, and he sees that it's been dismantled. McCready then hears gunfire coming from the base. He runs inside to discover everybody ducking and covering behind things. They say that Blair is going crazy. He has a gun, and he's also using an axe to destroy all the communications so they can't talk to the outside world. Windows is stuck in the communications room as Blair's going berserk on everything. McCready tells Childs to distract Blair so they can get the upper hand. Childs tries to talk to Blair. Blair shoots at him. He runs out of bullets, and then they make their move, and they tackle him to the ground. Another sad moment where we see Clark find out that his dogs have been murdered by Blair with an axe. Very sad. This was disturbing. I didn't like to see the axe in the dog's head. Then lock up Blair in the outside shed and board up the window so he can't escape. We see Dr. Copper give Dr. Blair a sedative to keep him calm. McCready asks Blair if he's okay. Blair replies that he just doesn't know who to trust. McCready says trust in God. And then as McCready's walking out the door, Blair tells him to beware of Clark, that he thinks Clark has been infected by the thing. McCready and the crew are trying to figure out who's infected and who isn't. Dr. Copper says that he does have their original blood samples. If they compare them with their blood samples now, they should be able to determine if somebody has changed. They go back to the fridge where the blood is kept, and they find it has been destroyed. The fridge has not been broken into, but must have been unlocked with the key. The only two people to have the key were Dr. Copper and Gary, who keeps all the keys, and they start pointing fingers. We have everybody getting paranoid here and fighting amongst each other. We then see Windows slip off into the distance, going for some guns. Gary catches up to Windows and threatens to shoot him, and Windows puts down his gun and surrenders. They then try to talk Gary down, and Gary's pointing a gun at everybody else, and then he tells them that he understands why they can't trust him and that he needs to pass leadership to someone else. McCready steps up and becomes the new leader of the group as he takes the gun. We see everybody go outside and dispose of the blood from the fridge. We then get a speech from McCready, who states that he knows not everybody's infected by the thing, that if they were, they'd be attacking him right now. And he says he's going to get to the bottom of who's the imitation and who isn't. He then tells Dr. Copper, Clark, and Gary to separate from the group. He tells Norris and Childs to tie them up in the rec room and shoot them up with morphine. He then tells Fuchs that he wants him to work on a new tell. We then see all three of them tied up and being injected with morphine. Later, we see McCready ask Fuchs if he figured out anything, how to determine who is infected. Fuchs says he hasn't figured out anything yet, but he's working on a few ideas. While Fuchs trying to figure out how to determine who's infected, the lights go out in the laboratory and he decides to figure out why. As he's going to look, he sees a figure run by. He decides to follow the figure outside, where he comes in contact with none other than R.J. McCready's torn up jacket. I don't think it was mentioned earlier, but they said when they find like torn clothes of somebody's, it's usually a good sign that they've been infected. McCready tells everybody that the laboratory lights went out. He thinks somebody deliberately blew a fuse and did something to Fuchs. He then tells everyone he wants to separate in search parties. He tells Windows and Knowles to go with him and the rest to search inside as they look outside. McCready's group goes to Blair's shed and asks him if he has seen Fuchs. And Blair asks to be let out and tells him that it's not Fuchs that he needs to be looking for. They find Fuchs' glasses and his charred body in the snow. They assume that he got infected and set himself on fire, but we don't really know what exactly happened to him. McCready tells Windows to go back and tell the others that they found Fuchs and that he's gone. And he says that him and Knowles is going to go up to his shed because the light is on and he turned the light off when he left. Childs asks the group how long McCready and Knowles have been out there. They said about 40 minutes. He says he thinks they're dead and they all should just start boarding up the doors and windows to protect themselves. We then see everybody boarding up the windows and doors. We do see some odd behavior from Norris here, who seems to be in some type of pain, but he does see someone outside coming towards the base and yells for the others. They let him in, and it's Knowles, and he reveals that he abandoned and left McCready behind because he thinks he's infected, and he shows them McCready's jacket that's torn up. He said he found it at McCready's place hidden in his furnace. We then see some more infighting between the group members as they point fingers with their paranoia, saying this person's infected. Palmer says Windows is infected. They say how can they trust Knowles and him as they were out there with them. They start to fight. Then they see the door handle start to move. But it's indeed McCready out there trying to get in. They tell him that they don't trust him and they're going to leave him out there and let him freeze to death. Then they hear the storeroom window being busted in. As they go to the door, it's locked. They try to bust in. We see Childs using an axe on the door. As he gets the door open, we see McCready with explosives and a lit flare threatening to set it off and kill all of them if they come near him. Knowles and Norris then grab McCready from behind, and McCready fights them away, knocking them both to the floor. McCready then again threatens to use the explosives and kill all of them if they come near him. Knowles tries to talk him out of it. They then notice that something is wrong with Norris as he's not responding. He's laying there lifeless, not breathing. While the doctor works on Norris, McCready holds everybody at bay with a flamethrower and explosives, not trusting them and them not trusting him, thinking that he's infected. Next scene, I had an oh shit moment, was not expecting that. This one and the dog were very disturbing. I think this one might have been worse though. So this might have to be the top of the list for this movie as being the most disturbing moment. It was pretty disgusting. McCready doesn't waste any time. He flamethrowers his ass, burning him to pieces. However, we do see a moment here where the head actually slithers off the table and falls onto the ground, and then it loses its antenna, tongue looking thing, whatever you want to call that, to move. We then see everybody come in and put out the fire, but we do get a glimpse of the head mutating as the eye stalks come up and the freaking spider legs. Like, what the hell is this thing? We then see it sneak behind McCready. However, it is noticed by Palmer. He then turns around and yes, this damn thing also gets flamethrowered. That's what we needed to see. Dead head beast looking thing. McCready then tells everybody to sit down and tie each other up so they can figure out who is infected and who isn't. Childs refuses to do this, and McCready's like, hey, dude, I'm not kidding. I'm not playing with you. I'm going to blow your freaking head off with this gun. And then as he's saying that, we see Clark try to stab McCready. McCready shoots him in the head, killing Clark. McCready believes he figured out a way to discover who's infected and who isn't by testing their blood, by using a heated up wire to touch the blood. If the blood doesn't react to the wire, then they are not infected. He said the reason this is because each part of the thing is a separate entity, so they'll react to survive regardless if it's a piece of blood or a part of a body or whatever. If it's infected, it will react. So he goes to test everybody's blood. He tested Window's blood first, and in his own, both were fine. And then he tests Copper, that's now dead, and also Clark's blood, which both were fine, so neither one of them were infected either. Then we see him test Palmer's blood. So the test was successful. We see Palmer is infected. He starts shaking and mutating as he's tied up right next to the others. We see McCready try to use his flamethrower, but he is unable to. The flamethrower keeps stalling out on him for some reason. Childs and Gary are freaking out as they're right next to him as he's mutating. He suddenly jumps up into the ceiling. McCready tells Windows to use his flamethrower, but he freezes. And then we see Palmer jump down in front of him, and then we see a very vicious scene. Everyone's tied up and freaking out as they watch poor Windows get ate, basically. We then see that McGrady finally was able to get the flamethrower to work, and he sets that sumbitch on fire. We see Palmer run out the door to the outside into the snow, and then we see McCready throw a explosive on top of him, exploding his body into pieces. McCready goes back inside and uses the flamethrower on Windows. McCready then finishes testing everybody else's blood. Knowles, Childs, and Gary are all fine and not infected, surprisingly. McCready tells Childs they're going to go test Blair's blood, but if he sees Blair come back without them, then to kill him. The crew arrives at Blair's shed. However, Blair's not to be seen. They find that there are some loose floorboards. They end up opening up the floorboards and going down under. They discover that Blair was actually building some type of spaceship at the bottom of the shed. I mean, I don't know how nobody didn't notice that, but that's what happened. They then go back up to the top, and they're trying to figure out where Blair could have went. We see that Knowles is looking out the window, and he sees that Childs is leaving the station. Just as Childs is leaving the station, we see all the lights go out. Somebody has disrupted the generator. McCready thinks that maybe Childs is indeed infected and is the one that destroyed the generator. They said if they can't get the generator back on, they're all going to freeze to death because it'll go 100 below without the heat. McCready says he doesn't think the thing wants to leave. It wants to go dormant again in the snow and wait for a rescue crew. That way it can affect a new group of people. He says even if they can't live and they're going to die, they're going to make sure it dies with them. So he says, let's heat up this place. And they decide to blow up the shed. They then go back to the main station and they begin going to every single room, setting it on fire with Molotov cocktails, blowing things up, just destroying everything with fire. They finally reach the generator room where they see the generator is completely destroyed. They have no way of fixing it. So now that, they're basically going to freeze to death. So they have no other choice. They decide they're going to sink the entire place into the ice, as McCready said. So they begin placing explosives strategically around to do so. While placing explosives down, Gary's distracted by his light going out. And then we see Blair attack him. And this is very disturbing how Blair kills poor old Gary. He shoves his hand across his mouth, I guess so he can't scream, but we see Blair's fingers actually going into Gary's skin, and that's anytime you see something going under skin or in skin, it's disturbing to me. So it was a very wild kill. We see poor old Gary being dragged away, and apparently Knowles sees this as well and just decides he's going to go investigate, not say, hey, McCready, I'm going to go check this out, something's going on. He just disappears, and we never see Knowles again. McCready asks Gary and Knowles how they're doing. He hears no response, obviously, because they're dead. He then decides to kind of investigate it as he gets the detonator ready to set off the explosives. He then sees something coming from under the ground, so he decides to light the piece of explosive that he has in his hand, and then we get the final conclusion.
Fuck you too!
A beaten and exhausted McCready barely escapes the explosion. Childs appears behind McCready and asks him if he's the only one alive, and McCready replies, not the only one. McCready asks him where he went, and he says he thought he saw Blair, so he took off after him. He says, you don't have to worry about me, and McCready replies, if we have a surprise for one another, neither one of us are up to doing anything about it, basically. They both laugh at this, and then Child says, the fire's going to be out soon. How are they going to survive the cold? And McCready replies, maybe we shouldn't. Childs then asks, what should we do? And McCready replies, just wait a while. And then it's roll credits. That is the end of the movie. My final thoughts on The Thing. I'm going to have to agree with Prime Video, guys, and give it 5 stars and say it's an excellent movie. I don't understand why it took me so long to finally watch it. I'm glad people talk shit, so I had to go watch it. It's actually a very good movie. I did enjoy it. I will put it under the horror column. There's a lot more going for it than just the sci-fi aspect. You know, we didn't really even get really into the alien part about it, just that there's an organism that can basically take over your body and all this stuff and replicate you, which is very alien, but it's more about the paranoia that these people are facing, where they're kind of betraying each other or turning against each other, pointing fingers, accusing each other. It's all the paranoia aspect that makes this movie great, because you just don't know, and we just have this person turn on this. And I was starting to think, well, maybe McCready is the one, maybe he's the one that's infected, and then you're like, but you don't want the hero to be infected. But it makes you think all different types of things, which is normal in a John Carpenter movie. He likes to also kill people off screen like he did with Knowles and Falks. And then we also get an unknown ending. We don't really know what happens to our remaining group there. You know, do they die? Do they survive? Are they infected? Are they not infected? Where the hell happened to this person or that person? We get all the questions that we expect from John Carpenter's movies. He wants you to make up the ending on your own, I think. Just like create it in your head. Like, this is probably what happened. Or this is what's going to happen. But anyways, guys, I have to say this is a great movie. I definitely did not get alien vibes from it, like, you know, like the Alien movies. Like, it wasn't like they were running around shooting or hiding from aliens the whole time. There's a lot more that went into it. And, yeah, I enjoyed it. And I didn't jump out of my seat scared or anything like that, but I did have a lot of skin-crawling moments. Like, the dog was really bad, and then, of course, Norris with the whole CPR that was going on there, trying to bring him back, and poor Copper's hands getting ripped off. But yeah, guys, I'm going to have to say excellent, excellent, excellent movie. I enjoyed it. Definitely will recommend it to others that have never seen it like myself. And that is it, guys. Great movie.